What makes this moment even more striking is the timing. McIlroy enters 2026 not as a player searching for validation, but as one who already has it. His 2025 season was nothing short of historic. By finally slipping on the green jacket at Augusta, he completed the career Grand Slam, a milestone that had eluded him for more than a decade. It wasn't just a win, it was a release. A defining chapter closed at last, and with it came a sense that Rory McIlroy no longer had anything left to prove to the game itself. And yet, instead of settling into comfort, he leaned forward. With majors conquered and legacy secured, McIlroy found himself in a rare position. Freedom. Freedom to think beyond scorecards and Sundays. Freedom to consider how power operates within modern golf. Freedom to ask whether the PGA Tour's future truly aligns with its past, and whether someone with enough credibility could force it to evolve. That's the context that matters here, because what Rory McIlroy just did isn't shocking because it's loud. It's shocking because it's strategic. It suggests intent, and it hints that 2026 may not be business as usual after all. So the real question isn't whether this move matters, it's how far the consequences will reach. To understand why Rory McIlroy's move toward 2026 carries so much weight, you have to rewind to what came before it. Long before any future-facing decisions were made, McIlroy had already rewritten the narrative of his own career. The 2025 season didn't just add another highlight to his resume, it resolved the one chapter that had lingered unresolved for over a decade. When Rory McIlroy finally won the Masters, it wasn't merely a victory, it was the completion of a journey that had defined his professional life. And with that moment, everything changed. The Masters win did more than earn McIlroy a green jacket. It completed the career Grand Slam, placing him in one of the most exclusive clubs in golf history. The pressure that had followed him to Augusta year after year vanished instantly. For the first time in a long time, McIlroy was no longer chasing history. He was standing inside it. That psychological shift mattered, because when a player stops playing to prove something, they start playing with clarity, and that clarity showed itself again and again as the season unfolded. What followed was dominance, not relief. McIlroy backed up his Masters triumph with multiple wins across the global calendar. He didn't fade after achieving the sport's ultimate milestone. He accelerated. Victories on both sides of the Atlantic, consistent contention in elite fields, and a commanding performance in the race to Dubai confirmed that this wasn't a sentimental peak, it was sustained excellence. Add in year-end honors and international recognition, and 2025 became more than memorable. It became definitive. But success brings its own weight. By the time the calendar turned toward 2026, McIlroy wasn't entering the new season as just another top-ranked player. He was entering as the benchmark. Fans expected dominance. Bombs. Sponsors expected leadership. The tour expected stability. Every appearance carried expectation, and every decision carried consequence. This was no longer a golfer navigating his legacy. This was a golfer shaping the environment around him. And that's the key detail so many miss. Because Rory McIlroy didn't step into 2026 as a contender, hoping things would break his way. He arrived as a dominant force, fully aware that when you stand at the top of the sport, every move echoes far beyond the fairways. So what was the move that sent shockwaves through the golf world? It wasn't a swing change, it wasn't a coaching hire, and it wasn't a quiet contract extension behind closed doors. Instead, Rory McIlroy made a bold, public commitment that ran directly against the way most elite golfers now operate. At a moment when many of the game's biggest stars are carefully trimming schedules, prioritizing majors, and protecting longevity, McIlroy did the opposite. He leaned in, fully. McIlroy effectively signaled that he would anchor himself to the evolving core of the PGA Tour's 2026 vision, embracing its restructured calendar, its signature events, and its experimental future-facing projects. Rather than cherry-picking appearances or treating non-majors as optional, he positioned himself as a central figure in the tour's next phase. That alone raised eyebrows. But what truly stunned insiders was how intentional it was. This wasn't nostalgia, it was alignment. The 2026 PGA Tour calendar is anything but traditional. Signature events carry heavier weight. Player commitments are under sharper scrutiny, and newer ventures, including technology-driven team-based formats, are no longer side projects. They're part of the tour's long-term survival strategy. While some players have remained cautious, even skeptical, McIlroy stepped forward as a believer, a participant, a leader. That puts him in stark contrast with the modern superstar template. Most top players today manage exposure. They guard energy. They avoid becoming symbols of institutional direction. McIlroy chose visibility instead. He chose responsibility. And in doing so, he tied his personal brand not just to winning tournaments, but to whether the PGA Tour's evolving structure succeeds or fails. That's where the risk comes in, because if the schedule overwhelms players, if new formats struggle, if fan engagement doesn't follow, McIlroy will be inseparable from the outcome. He didn't hedge. He didn't wait to see how things played out. He committed before certainty existed. And in professional sports, that's rare. This wasn't just a scheduling decision, it was a philosophical one. Rory McIlroy didn't bet on himself as a golfer. He bet on the future of the tour itself. And when a player of his stature does that, it stops being personal and starts being structural, which raises an uncomfortable question for everyone else watching closely. What if this gamble reshapes the balance of power in golf entirely? The reaction was immediate and deeply divided. Within hours of Rory McIlroy's stance becoming clear, the golf world split into camps. Commentators dissected every word. Former players weighed in on broadcasts and podcasts. Fans flooded social media with equal parts admiration and skepticism. This wasn't just another top player making noise, this was Rory McIlroy stepping into a role that few players ever willingly occupy. Lightning rod. To some, McIlroy's move looked visionary, a necessary show of leadership at a time when the PGA Tour is still redefining itself after years of upheaval. Supporters argued that golf needs star players who do more than protect their own schedules, players willing to help stabilize the ecosystem. In that view, McIlroy wasn't sacrificing anything. He was investing, betting that long-term relevance matters more than short-term convenience. Scottie Scheffler didn't just have a strong season, he didn't just pick up a few big wins, he beat Rory McIlroy head-to-head when it mattered. He outperformed him across an entire year in ways that were hard to argue with. Awards, results, and key moments all tilted in the same direction. This wasn't a single hot stretch or a favorable matchup. It was sustained, undeniable, and very public. And suddenly the conversation changed. Not long ago, that outcome would have seemed almost impossible. Scheffler was elite, yes, but Rory was Rory, the player with the higher ceiling, the broader resume, the aura that came from more than a decade at the top. Scheffler was supposed to chase, not replace. He was supposed to be part of the pack, not the one setting the pace. That's why this shift felt so jarring. It challenged assumptions that had quietly solidified over years. And now the most uncomfortable question in golf is hanging in the air. If Scottie Scheffler can beat Rory McIlroy directly and outpace him over a full season, what does that say about the balance of power in men's golf right now? Because moments like this don't just decide trophies, they redefine eras. To understand why this moment carries so much weight, you have to understand Rory McIlroy's place in the game. For more than a decade, he has been golf's measuring stick, not just because of wins, but because of consistency. Season after season, across different courses, conditions, and eras, Rory has remained relevant at the very top. He became the reference point, the player others were compared to, not replaced. And that kind of stature doesn't disappear quietly. That's where expectations were set, and they were clear. Scottie Scheffler was elite, undoubtedly, a world-class talent with a game built for modern golf. But elite didn't automatically mean above Rory. The assumption was that Scheffler would exist alongside him, not overtake him. Rory's combination of experience, global presence, and proven longevity made him feel insulated from being clearly surpassed. At least that's how it looked for a long time. The reason this comparison has always been so difficult is because separating great players at the top of golf rarely comes down to one moment. Their careers overlap, their peaks intersect. One wins here, the other responds there. The margins are thin and debates stay unresolved. That's why head-to-head clarity is so rare in this sport. Usually the hierarchy stays blurred just enough to preserve the status quo, which is why beating Rory means something very specific. It's not about a single trophy or a single Sunday. It's about redefining who sets the standard. When someone consistently outperforms the benchmark, the hierarchy shifts whether people are ready for it or not. And once that shift begins, it changes how every result is interpreted from that point forward. What makes Scottie Scheffler's rise so convincing is that it's backed by moments that are hard to dismiss. This wasn't decided in theory or reputation, it happened on the course. Head-to-head meetings mattered, and Scheffler came out on top when he shared the stage with Rory McIlroy. Whether it was in playoff situations or key events where both were in contention, Scheffler didn't blink. Those moments carry extra weight because they remove excuses. When players face the same pressure, the result speaks clearly. Beyond individual matchups, the season-long picture told an even stronger story. Player of the Year recognition didn't come from one hot stretch or a handful of highlights. It reflected sustained excellence over months of competition. Scheffler accumulated results steadily, while others fluctuated. That kind of recognition is the outcome of accumulation, not emotion. And when those honors come at the expense of someone like McIlroy, they underline a shift rather than a coincidence. Statistically, the gap was built through control rather than spectacle. Scheffler didn't overwhelm fields with constant fireworks. He separated himself through consistency. High finishes, clean rounds, and very few off weeks. While others surged and faded, he stayed present. Under pressure, his game looked smaller, simpler, and more reliable. That's not flashy golf, but it's winning golf. And over time, it compounds. That's why this run can't be explained away as luck or short-term form. Repeatable performance is the hardest thing to sustain at the top of the sport, and Scheffler showed it across an entire season. The patterns didn't change when the stakes rose. If anything, they sharpened. And when performance becomes